Welcome back, everyone, to the Amazon European Masters knockout stage, where Dusty came in clutch for game 1 and then now up 1-0. And these are my notes. These are all the takes we had for, the start of the series. Let's get rid of them because it doesn't matter anymore. Dusty is 1-0 up. What are my analysts doing?
Do you want to take it? I can take it.
I mean, for you, it's maybe a celebration.
Yeah, I am very happy to see Dusty play like this. This is not a version of Dusty we get super frequently since playoffs, and I think even more true in the Amazon European Masters group stage as well. Like, I think giving Stend the fifth pick is something they've maybe done once or twice off the top of my head in memory. But I think to me, a lot of this came down to draft, right? And kind of the ability to consistently shut down anybody that dove forward because of that Sejuani Wukong was so imperative.
I don't think only the draft, because I also think the way they played out the early game is what we wanted to see. Is like, you got to put LDLC under pressure.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how the game went for Dusty for two reasons. First, the early game, where the pressure actually was put forward by Dusty. But then we also had the second part where LDLC does LDLC things. It's a bit weird to describe, but suddenly they get leads. They play around Rift Heralds. They start to get ahead in the game. And normally that's where I'm like, okay, now the game is over. LDLC has control. They'll never give it back. But then suddenly Dusty find that 6th, 7th gear they found in playoffs in NLC as well, where they just keep on going, keep on playing in your face. And LDLC doesn't know what's happening. This team has played against Vitality B. That's their entire play style. But somehow Dusty finds a way around that Wukong and that Sejuani to actually put LDLC on the back foot.
You both touched upon it already, but I was going to talk about the draft. First of all, looking at the way the blue side was handled by LDLC, picking up the Aphelios first pick, we said this is a contested pick, but it didn't really pay off for them eventually.
Yeah, I can't remember what was that exactly. Once in the last 15, 20 games, something like that.
20 games,
for Exakick. They don't really play it that much, this split. And I think a lot of the reason why we potentially saw this come up as a first pick for LDLC was a little bit of a takeaway respect for Dusty, right? I think they came into this expecting Dusty to try and maybe go blow for them, right? Play super standard, engage topside jungle, hyperscaling mid and AD. And they kind of did that with the Sivir, but the rest of the comp, absolutely not. And I think taking away that sort of potential early game agency you could have had, because let's be real, Dusty were almost always going to pick a hyperscaling AD or something that scales with not a lot of agency in the early game, I think kind of limited LDLC in terms of their early game options.
The thing, though, with the fact that they pick up the Aphelios first, it kind of leaves open the other two champions, Sejuani and Wukong. And I think you said that, Jamada, and give this point to you, Dino, is this might be the strongest 2v2 we currently have in the meta.
I mean, yeah, I would put Bel'Veth right next to Wukong if you can pull it off, because Sejuani is really good around neutral objectives as well, and Bel'Veth actually insta-procs the passive of Sejuani. But it's something that LDLC knows. They have pulled out Sejuani, Bel'Veth. In my mind, I was doing, okay, what's a perfect draft for LDLC? And Sejuani, Bel'Veth topside was one of the things I was looking at. It's something good Dusty did in draft, where on red side, where we want to see them, instead of playing for Kerberos, which is something we might have expected, they instantly take away the Sejuani, and then they follow it up with the Wukong. And you saw that LDLC actually had a lot of trouble with matching the aggression that Dusty got out of it, matching the hard engage that Dusty got out of it.
Yeah, they had a hard time, but I think there was a certain moment in the game where it was like, okay, this is the LDLC. I know the LDLC that goes for second Herald, and they find a fight. And I want to point out, especially, I think it's Ragner in this fight, like the way he gets into the backline from Dusty and makes it very hard for the carries to play the game.
Yeah, kind of comically, he uses the clone from Lyncas to double dash in, and at that point, he's effectively just in the backline, and he's running the Gordrinker build, right? It's that big AoE meat shield build. It's not that Blade During King to try and dominate the lane. It's all about the team fighting, and a lot of that kind of came to fruition here. And I saw this fight play out, and I was like, is this just, great? We saw Dusty play the game for 18 minutes, and now it's all LDLC. The short answer is no. It didn't end up being that. LDLC extended their lead off the back of this fight quite honestly, excellently. But again, it felt like composition to composition, the tools that for me Dusty had were just a little bit too strong, right? I think when I look over to LDLC, they were responding as we expected them to try and shut down what Dusty had, right? Renekton, Trundle, it's the only other 2v2 in my mind that could shut down that Sejuani Wukong early on, but that still didn't end up working either.
Yeah, for me, I'm really curious to how the post-game breakdown kind of looks like, because if you look at the gold graph, I would say, Dusty starts off pretty strong.
Oh, God.
But it's more like you neutralize LDLC. LDLC starts walking, I think this is after that fight, the 18-minute mark. That's where
I was going to say, you can see exactly where it happened, Colin. You can see where the disaster struck for Dusty.
I want to talk about DenVoksne, because the entire draft of Dusty was focused in such a way of hard engaging, and then at R5, they take big Pike instead of an Enchanter, and they actually leave DenVoksne out to dry. But look at the amount of damage he put out on the Sivir.
I think this really speaks to the composition again. I keep on hitting on it because I think it's actually so smart. Because, like you say, I thought, okay, well, you're going to have effectively almost 4 divers moving forward to execute targets as they can with the Pike ult. But what it actually ended up being was more about DenVoksne having a bunch of space. And if anybody dove forward, everybody on Dusty would turn around, and because the Sejuani has 3 other melee champions, they just get permafrosted and CC to death. And it's kind of strange, because you look at this comp, this is not a comp really where Sivir should necessarily be the vocal point per se, but I think because LDLC, it was a perfect storm, because LDLC had no hard engage tools to actually lock down the Sivir, and then you have this composition from Dusty which can very easily collapse back and play Peel. It just set him up for a 45k damage game.
Although I kind of want to go back into the early game, because I feel like we set up Dusty as like, hey, if you want to do something, if you want to make it hard for LDC, I don't know if it's really fair after that fight at the second hour, but you know, if you want to do something, do it in the early game. And you see it significantly slowed down LDLC in a way that they were able to catch up to speed.
Yeah, 100%. I think if they don't do that due diligence in the early game, then LDLC probably has such a big lead that the comeback is impossible, because in the end they had to weather the storm. The 18 minutes still happened. There was a huge goal jump that happened right there, but if you're already 2-3k behind, then the game is just done. Then you just get hit around with the wallets. But what ended up happening was that in some of the fights where Dusty actually came back, the item difference wasn't that big. The goal difference was big, but the item difference wasn't. And it just comes down to execution in teamfights, where I think Dusty actually stepped up huge in the mid to late game, and LDLC started crumbling when they didn't find that backline access, and they just kept on getting engaged.
I mean, 100% agree that you know, Dusty didn't give up, but I think there's a player in specific we need to highlight here who actually was the one's like, I'm not losing today, at least not this game, and it's Lyncas. Lyncas on the Wukong was, for me, one of the players that actually made the difference in this game.
And you know what? We didn't really talk about it too much in the pre-show, did we? You know, the focus is more on, you know, Kerberos with champion picks, DenVoksne being that late game. Hey, you know what, we might be 5k down, but you know who isn't 5k down? DenVoksne. And honestly, it didn't really come down to that. Okay, yeah, sure, DenVoksne, 45k damage, whatever. But it was more about Lyncas finding opportunities like that and just consistently being so on the ball, so sharp with all of these engages.
Yeah, I think Lyncas came up huge on the Wukong. In general, a lot of those fights where they actually held on to the game, like this one, is where Lyncas actually finds a lot of targets.
Exakick, I mean, up to this point, I was like, this is lost. LDLC won this.
LDLC was winning. Exakick walks up to poke DenVoksne on the tower, and Lyncas, he doesn't hesitate. And it's beautiful to see, because this is actually how X7 also navigated LDLC in the late game, where you just need to have that one engager that actually pops off and hits all the engages, and I think that was Lyncas.
Now, we don't have a lot of time before we head into the second game, and I kind of want to touch upon this very shortly. Jamada, is the fact that LDLC is going to stay on the blue side, which I find pretty interesting. I expect them to ban out the Aphelios and pick away the Sejuani or the Wukong.
I think they'll let the Aphelios go through. I think they'll actually end up going towards the Sejuani first pick or the Wukong. I think they're more likely to split up that pairing as opposed to actually taking away the Aphelios. The only time I see them first picking AD is if they go towards the Sivir first. But even then, I think that's a little more unlikely. I think the bans will probably stay the same. I'm expecting the pick order to change.
Can the LFL champion strike back against Dusty? Well, you will find out as we head into our second game with our beloved casters, Oshin and Nymera.
You stop bullying me now that Dusty have won. You stop bullying me.
No. It's game 1, all right? We had the LPL finals in France, in OTP. Shout out to them, they're great guys. And yeah, vive la France. Going back into this one here, I think LDLC, as I mentioned on the desk, are going to take a lot of learnings from this. I think LDLC are definitely going to be a bit more invigorated and a bit more learned, shall we say, coming into Dusty, because if that works more than once, then LDLC are in a lot of trouble.
For sure, because actually this isn't uncharted territory for LDLC. Actually, I got a message just after game 1 ended from Middlecart, who's cast the LFL in English, saying, you know, LDLC did lose the first game of each of their best of 5s in playoffs, and I was like,
it's downloading them.
You know, I've got these notes, and I was like, yeah, maybe I should just like rip up the prep which I've done or whatever. And I'm like, okay, no, let's put it back together. Put it back together, quick.
That's our draft, quick.
Because they're not out of the woods yet. This is still a very potent team in LDLC. We saw that even with Dusty playing at those fights exceptionally well, LDLC controlled most of that game. Not out of the woods. A lot of work to be done by the NLC, and the LFL will now be wanting to strike back.
I mean, there's got to be, but I will say the 0-12 dream for NLC is dead. Shout out to Veteran on Twitter who posted that one there, as Dusty do break the curse of another 0-6. So at least, at bare minimum, the NLC will have one game in playoffs this year in the EU Masters. But so far in this draft, we have not changed any of the bans. Still the Yasuo, still the Seraphine, and still the Kalista with the Azir. So here is LDLC's chance to maybe change that. They go for the Wukong.
Okay.
I'm smelling a Szechuani first pick.
That changes a lot of things. Now, both these players are Aphelios players. You can understand why LDLC went for that first pick in game 1, just in terms of recent bias on the champions coming through. But I think we could see the flaws of that champion as the game went on. It was much harder to disengage onto that champion once the Devour from the Tahm Kench was used onto a frontline target. So LDLC, they have a chance to adapt. They've already done one such thing already in Dusty, deliberating that final ban. What are they going to go for? We are suspecting a Sejuani first pick.
Yeah.
So Dusty go for the ban instead. What's your first pick? It's going to be the Aphelios again, but now you don't have that same point and click effectively. Just throw the Sejuani ult at someone and kill the first target. Pressure in team fights.
I will say, this is a bit of a call out from LDLC, because the last time around they banned away the LeBlanc and kind of said, look, you can't have that. We're not going to allow you to get this one here for your mid laner for Backlund. But this time around, they're kind of saying, look, maybe don't believe you'll pick it up this early. Maybe we'll go for it and give ourselves a better matchup.
Yeah, and remember in that first draft as well, there was a heck of a lot of bans towards Backlund. Now, Backlund was, let's say, the analysts' MVP for the NLC. Didn't actually win it in terms of like the overall vote, but Backlund was so potent that on the broadcast, we're just sat there and like, yeah, this guy is just really, really good, and was a key to Dusty's success within the regular season and playoffs. And now onto LeBlanc, which is one of his most known champions. It's going to have a bit more ability to impact the game through comfort alone. And DenVoksne back onto that Sivir, which did do a heck of a lot of heavy lifting in game 1.
It really did. And the funny thing is, we were talking as well when it came into the picks and bans. We were talking a little bit just in the break there between ourselves that the Pyke itself as a champion didn't really do a lot. But the vision control that was able to be highlighted, of course, was over 150 when the Tahm Kench was on 50. It was significant.
We actually had a bit of a joke in terms of, like, you could have played something like Grave Support with the number blade, and it would have done actually kind of similar. It's like, oh, you know, the Pyke ults or whatever. We didn't really see the Pyke ults getting crazy value, but the Umbral Glaive very much did, and it stopped LDLC being able to take those more intricate angles into fights. Now, you can take intricate angles with something like a Rakan. You can also go straight down the throat of the enemy team composition and go for the hard engage, because DOS plays an awful lot of Rakan. If Stend is the Nautilus guy, DOS is the Rakan one, and now you have Eika going back towards their most played of the Ahri yet again. And that's going to be the Ahri versus LeBlanc mid lane. We saw that a lot in spring. LDLC were wonderfully proficient at tilting this matchup with the likes of that Rakan roaming mid, upsetting that matchup early, which of course Dusty did in game 1 for their own side.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they are going for the Rakan. You know, Jamada mentioned it on the desk. There was very little in game 1 engage for the side of LDLC. Very hard for them outside of a flash, you know, kind of W coming in from the Renekton or a flash charm coming out from Eika for them to start a fight. Now you've got the Rakan. Now you have the quickness with the knock-up of the battle dance. So with that coming in here into mind, it looks like LDLC have made their changes, have done their homework to make this one work.
But if we're going to talk about those engages as well, Stend back onto, well, we kind of mentioned it already, it's the Nautilus is going to be the 2 supports on their most comfortable picks, and both these teams have already talked a lot about how comfort is so important to them. On another comfortable pick for LDLC, now there's another engage option taken away from the LFL team. So Dusty, I'm wondering what they're going to do about this topside effort. When you do see that Ragner typically goes towards tankier champions like that one, I was wondering actually if they could leave it open and actually maybe go for something like that Darius, because that's something which Kerberos has found a lot of success with regionally. Struggled in groups. I believe Darius picked in both of their game losses versus game wards in the group stage, especially the first game anyway. Very much struggled to impact that game, but not going to be able to have it this time. And maybe that signals that LDLC want to go towards something that scales up, does a little bit more team fight impact on the tanky side of things.
There's a lot of bans being thrown into here. I was actually expecting a lot more in terms of the Talias. They were actually expecting the Talia jungle coming out here.
Yeah, Lyncas does play it. Did play it once in groups. It was not a great combo. It was double AP mid jungle, which meant that the damage fell off a little bit late game, and so many people picked up MR. But still, Lyncas saw what he could do on that Wukong, giving him anything which can do damage in a team fight. Kind of rough. Yeah,
it's a bit rough, but they do ban that one away. I was just about to say, we haven't seen that many jungle bans going either side. Definitely been looking up towards Ragner and, of course, Kerberos. But the Xin Zhao comes in, still a good skirmishing jungler, still can have that same level of early impact, just not as big AoE ultimate like the Cyclone.
I was actually, so Lyncas, one of his other big champions is Graves. I was actually wondering, okay, you've got like this dart forward assassin, LeBlanc throw Graves all over there. It would be fitting with what the Dusty mid-jungle duo have done in the past. But going towards that Shinzo, as you said, going towards slightly more early pressure. But the thing is, now you do have an awful lot of diving champions in terms of the Nautilus, very low range, getting up in your face, the Zhao getting up in your face. If any of them ever get caught into the fight when you're up against the Sion, which we already talked about the tanky top laners, it was likely to come in. And you are likely, at that point, to give a reset over to Ahri, over to Viego. This is obviously what T1 and RNG did so much in spring around that kind of meta of just having the double reset, peel back, kill the first target, roll forwards. I'm looking at Dusty's comp, and you... Oh! There we go, Kerberos special. Forget about that, Kerberos special. We got the anti-tank matchup. He's always got another one in the book. He comes out with an Nasus.
We got Susan.
We do.
We do. Someone message Ashley Kang. Let her know that this is going down right now in EE Masters. But Kerberos with the Nasus. So, does do very similar things to what the Sejuani does. But like you said, an anti-kind of tank matchup, anti-engage one. Because when you go in on him with the Wither, of course, with the stacking coming in, the later the game goes on, this is where it starts to get a little bit more difficult to deal with. I will say, though, he is exceptionally weak really early in the game. And with a Viego Sion, you can run him down.
Well, and particularly the Viego Ahri as well, because when you've got the LeBlanc, you can lose the push in that lane, and LDLC typically, as we've been saying quite a lot, are very good at tilting these flippier mid-lane matchups like the Ahri versus LeBlanc. Done that the entire year so far. If you see this Nasus dying early on, it's going to be rough, because actually Nasus doesn't really fit the theme of this composition. You are kind of just walking at the enemy champions like...
He doesn't fit many themes.
I'll catch up to you, Nautilus. I'll catch up to you, Zhao. And that's kind of difficult in the teamfight setting. You need it to be individually strong, running over that side lane matchup with the Sion. Expect something happening in this top side. Kerberos needs to get shut down by LDLC. Kerberos needs to succeed for Dusty.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. LDLC looking to try and equal themselves back up into a 1-1 position. They've taken the learnings from their first game loss, trying to make this one work for themselves, but Dusty still got a couple of tricks up their sleeve. A Kerberos special, even taking the fleet footwork here for extra survivability, and it looks like LDLC, they were prepared. They were saying, look, it's a Nautilus, it's a Zhao, it's a pretty strong level 1 as well with the damage carries. We're not going to get caught out. We're going to stack here just in case.
Yeah, no, so over previous tournaments, I've been lucky enough to see some of the scouting reports after the tournament, see actually how much did these teams know about the other teams. And there was a lot of level 1 prep from ERL teams. You can see them saying, oh, look, if they play this kind of champion, they stack like this on the map, and when they stand in this area of the map, you know this from process elimination. You're spotting patterns and then seeing a very obvious pattern of, hey, hang on, they have a lot of CC and damage at level 1. You don't give them the option. Backlund able to walk up. Going to take not a trade, actually.
Loses the ward, though.
Loses the ward, which does mean that you are going to get a little bit of XP over the side of LDLC. I'm actually not sure if I've got any of the XP onto that, whether or not it's tax thrown over. But either way, they know where Yike is starting. Yet again, talked about this in game 1. Yike, typically a champion, or jungler rather, that once you get information on the enemy jungler and start playing through that, when he's spotted out in that level 1, does mean that he has a little less to work with.
Yeah, I like the adaptation we're seeing from Eika. You mentioned it obviously in game 1. He was into the Silas, so he took the first strike. Not going to be as easy to get that proc, so this time around going for the electrocute. It's all about burst. These are assassins now in this mid lane. It's going to come down to who can get their damage down the fastest.
And we also have the Ignite too, so you're looking at this matchup, and if LDLC were already good at playing around this mid lane matchup by bringing their jungler and support to play, that Ignite adding the extra ticket damage for early fights particularly does add up. Stend, though, looking towards hitting that level 2, standing in that brush, hits the hook level 1.
Yeah, it does hit the hook, and it will get some decent damage down, but it's nothing more than just a bit of a pat on the head here to Doss. And again, this is something we've seen so far now. When you pick that Nautilus, with most players, most teams moving away from those hard engages, you need to make the most of your CC. So when you do generally see the Nautilus, it's a fast push into level 2 to try and get summoners out of people.
I love actually watching the body language of these two mid laners. Here, that Eika is really playing dangerously with their HP bar. Knows that they have to still be contesting the wave. A lot of the way that you get heals as Ahri is by killing minions. If you're denied minions, you actually have less effective HP in lane. So Backlund walking up, knows that the enemy support's not roaming, looking at where this map is, actually stacking it up, maybe able to impact the rest of the map. Kerberos, though.
Oh, flash away, which means he doesn't have it anymore. They aren't going to go ahead and go for the full dive just yet. It is still a level 3 Nasus with the Wither, and of course with the Spirit Fire reducing that magic resistance. It makes it very, very difficult to try and take him down without losing someone else in the process.
Yeah, so some early look-ins from Yike. Stend now unlocked from the lane. Of course, we saw him do similar in game 1 with that pike, and now with Backlund able to pin the Ahri back towards their tower. That Stend is not going to be contested in clearing out vision, walking around and just seeing where they can get their own value for things. And now Yike called in to just be on call, just in case anything happens under this tower. Backlund had so many bans in game 1, having a much more fun time of it. Actually, a really fun trade there. If you actually fire off an auto or a Q just as the tower shot fires at a minion, you won't take it back. So obviously the turret's already targeted on someone else. FLICKR showed that solo queue on stream recently. Backlund making sure, using that tech to get a good trade in that mid lane all the same, just pushing the advantage.
The funny thing is, obviously, someone who's just maybe cluing in right now is that these are #1 seeds from the region. NLC #1. Dusty did take the Summer Championship, and of course LDLC won in LFL. But probably why we're so surprised and why we're so acceptant of LDLC just being better is because how they were able to do it. This team was so good at just controlling the game, keeping everyone at their pace, saying, look, this is how we do this dance, and no one else is going to change it. What's been exceptionally, honestly, just surprising and just really good to see from Dusty is how they've taken that and said, no, we are the ones dictating this. We are the ones going for this. But we're going to look to see if they can continue to put pressure onto this Nasus. He's dead. There's not much else he can do. They're going to get the resets. And yeah, you're going to have the wither coming down. You might lose your flash here, buddy. Just going to hold on to that one just for the moment. But yeah, this is the problem with the Nasus. He is exceptionally vulnerable in those first few levels.
Yeah, so Ragner actually going to get aggressed onto you here. Backlund coming up. Basically, all Dusty are doing is saying, all right, can we at least get some farm towards Kerberos? Right when we loaded onto that rift, we were kind of talking about this Nasus being like, look, doesn't really fit the theme of the composition, doesn't really do much in those team fights comparative to other picks because you're going to struggle to deal with the front line and also the disengage, peel back that LDLC have. You need him to be strong, just so we can overcome that kind of stylistic difference with the rest of the team. Yike. Ragner, understand that, immediately put pressure down and force him down a significant amount of gold and get a kill onto him too.
I wonder, does the Viego effigy benefit from the fact that you can get stacks off of Kerberos or off the Nasus? Is that perma-stacking? Is that for... Because I know if you take it as support, you can use the stacks off of their ward item. If they have like a runic shield or something.
You know, I don't specifically know the one for. I don't specifically know the one for Nasus. I doubt it would affect your actual queue. It might end up being the kind of thing where you just take the stacks which Nasus has
and keep it forever.
And then well, level 6 hit both sides of mid lane. Yike once again just making sure to be there to make sure that Eika can be a little more safe in this laning phase. Backlund, of course, doing very well in the 1v1 matchup. That's a sign of life for Dusty. You know what? If someone does know that interaction between Viego and Nasus...
Keep it to yourself. Don't let us know.
Absolutely.
Curveball. Don't let people know your thing. Gotta keep them on their hose. But, oh, Stend. A little bit of bad communication there. They're going to still make this one try and work, but a flash in from Eika. Yeah, this is not good from Dusty, but LDLC will gladly take that overextension. I feel like once you miss the hook, you didn't really need to overextend that much, and they're still going for it because they had the root, but you're going to lose so much more now off of this play because you're just going to have that wave crash in.
And while this is happening, Yike picks up the wave mid lane. It's not like you're losing XP for absolutely nothing. Eika on the board, gets involved in that bot side, and Dusty, they overplay their hand. Stend not quite able to hit that dematerializer into Dredge line on that bot side, messes up the timing just so slightly. LDLC, and just in position to punish.
And again, this is where Dusty don't need to do it. We saw it a little bit in game 1 where they overextend to make a play happen. And speaking of making a play happen, yeah, you've no flash, you've nowhere to go. You can pop your ultimate all you like, but there's no real chance you're going to be able to take down either the Viego or the Sion. So that's going to be Yike picking up another kill. And that's 3-0 now on the scoreboard. This gold lead starting to get to 2,000. It's getting a bit big.
Methinks that LDLC got a bit angry from game 1, and they're coming in with a huge amount of power in this early game. Dusty picking this, I mean, they are a comfort pick team. They like to pick comfort towards particularly that top side for Kerberos, but you can see what happens when Kerb isn't on a champion where he can just sit and do his job. He needs to put in a little bit more thought into it, and the team needs to support him. Dusty getting punished.
No, there's going to be a 2v2 here, but you don't have ultimates here for the side of LDLC. Okay. And you get yourself a kill onto Yike. That's a good trade back here. Stend with a good roam and doing what he did in game 1 and moving away from bot.
And it's at 8 minutes, so you've got the Herald alive. Backlund's pushing in mid. You've got Kerberos who's still in control top side. Ragnar no TP, no ult. This is actually going to be a pick into ult into the Herald for Dusty.
Well, they're going to see DenVoksne not having the best of trades right now, but again, there is always a pull when you push. There is always an equal and opposite reaction to any action you take, which means that you have to give up that bot side. But having a look at this top lane here again, Kerberos, he gets slowed, which means there's no way he can walk out of it. We looked at bot lane for a second just to try and to duke it out, but yeah, there's nothing you can do here as a Nasus.
Well, this is what you were saying right from the Champions League, right? So I was like, yeah, Sion, Viego, they can force onto you super easily. I was wondering whether it was going to be the Ahri coming up there a little bit more, but no, I mean, it's just that freight train rushing in from the side from Ragner and Yike, getting themselves more to that, but little do they know that. Well, you should be able to tell at this point that the support is somewhere on the map. I think they just kind of guessed wrong as to where they are. Stend turns up topside, and Yike goes down.
I mean, losing the flash as well is pretty big. The Viego not going to have that to try and flash root somebody down. Ragnar now seeing if he can just keep this wave at a nice little point away from Kerberos, where he's always overextended. And it's not out just yet here for the side of Dusty. They have brought that gold lead back just a little bit more. But again, it's going to come down to how they're able to kind of keep this Nasus relevant, because it's all what it is really at this point.
Backlund. Oh, close.
I like the idea.
He's trying to go towards the electrocute trade, realizing there was another proc left on that one. But unlike the first game, we haven't had a trade of the Herald for something else on the map, like the Dragon. Of course, Yike had died in that top side, so LDLC not finding themselves a neutral objective just yet. It is another Mountain Dragon first. Of course, the base stats on that's so important, particularly for someone like Sion, who is one of the true hyperscaling tanks. That Soul Furnace passive on the W, giving you so much stacking HP through the game, means that your resists just mean that much more. And Ragnar doesn't just have the ability to resist damage, has some ability to do it as well. Base damages for Sion, obviously doing very, very well in this one. So, all that said and done, Mountain Dragon, fairly valuable. DenVoksne not going to be able to fight it though if he dies.
Yeah, he gets flashed in on top of, but he doesn't go down just yet. We are going to see Spell Shield very late, so you've lost Flash and Ignite and Quickness here from DOS, but a full push into this bot side. So regardless of a Rift Herald or not, LDLC will be able to continue to put pressure down here. They do have to deal with the Xin Zhao though, and you can see now Backlund moving himself away from the mid lane, putting himself in a position where he might be able to go for something. Stend, you may be the Nautilus guy, but I feel like you need to readjust where that hitbox is.
So, funnily enough, actually in the NLC finals, Stend actually got a game with Nautilus, which we were all very surprised by. Missed a couple of awkward hooks there, but still ended up running away with the game. End of the day, sometimes it is the thought process recounts in terms of like, let's just go for an engage now. Choose the right timing and then just hope it works out after that point. But Backlund, also on comfort. Doesn't have his W though.
No, he does not. And we can see now, oh, he's baited him. I love this. He's trying to get him away. And yeah, doesn't actually commit there with the Heartbreaker, but that was a little bit close there. A little bit cheeky from Backlund. Keeps his flash, keeps himself alive, and Dusty not quite done just yet. They are, again, still down in this game. LDLC looking comfortable, especially with that stacking Sion, who's just getting bigger and bigger, even as a Cole, to keep himself just as that bit more ahead of that Nasus. Kerberos is going to struggle to really do anything later on in this mid-game.
Yeah, he knows that he's not going to be denied farm at this point. Kerberos just going to be pushing in this wave, ping-ponging it back and forth, knows that at least he's able to get some stacks. But while this is happening, Kerberos gets that push in top side. Backlund has eyes on Eika in mid, means that they can go towards bot. DOS is caught.
DOS is caught, but he does have himself a battle dance. They have the grab, but I'm not sure they want to use it. It's got a two-man knockdown. Yike. Again, not having a flash means it's very difficult for him to really extend out and make this one work. They get 2 plates down onto Dusty's bot lane, trying to equal out a little bit of that gold, and they're trying to push in this pressure pull with Inferno.
What's going to happen with this TP? If Ragnar goes back, there's a chance for TP into that.
Nah, it's gone top.
But that goes back towards top. That was just a brief worry, because I'm like, look, you do actually have ways to force this, and particularly a champion like Xin Zhao can really struggle without flash when you don't have a winning fight. If you start losing a fight, Xin Zhao doesn't get out with you. It's not like you have an ability to disengage from those fights, but as you rightly said, Ragnar does actually go towards top lane instead. Dusty not overstaying to the point where Ragnar could find something towards that bot side, but nonetheless, top lane still going very well for LDLC. Sunfire Aegis built up by Ragnar, and we continue to see Kerberos having a difficult time.
This is how this match is going to go. I don't want to lie to you, I don't want to lie to the observers. This is how this one's going to go. It's just going to be everything.
We've seen it now. Let's go literally anywhere but the top.
I love you, observers, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's a wet noodle fight.
The superior matchup is that the camera wiggles around and leaves.
I appreciate what they do.
Wait.
It's a very difficult job.
Is that like the observers? You know, like how a dog like wags its tail? Is that like the observer?
No, if the observer can recognize that you're talking to it, it's like you're now in danger. Yeah. You're in danger.
It's self-aware.
It is self-aware. But yeah, Kerberos, he's not really going to be aware of what's going to happen in the next few seconds. He's trying to get rid of this mid lane. Should be able to stop Ragnar from maybe taking this tower just yet. But with 3 people here, yeah, it's not really much else you can do. Yike going to go in. They'll even get the unstoppable onslaught. So the tower goes down. He dies. 3rd time this game. It will be traded by Dusty for a dragon, but yeah, this Nasus last pick, it ain't having the best of times.
There you go. That's League of Legends horror survival mode. I mean, Dusty are getting something else on the rest of the map. They do get plates on bot side, so they managed to break that one open. They get first Dragon as well. We've already talked about how the 9% resists on top of all there. Well, this changes things. Backlund gonna get ignited.
Yeah, he's ignited, he's ticking, and he's dead. Stend trying to keep himself alive. Not quite sure how that one went down, but again, just looks like a very good engage from DOS coming in with that Rakan. Just having the quickness, having that quick flash to get in, just makes the difference.
And it is DOS's Rakan. Talk so much about comfort on both sides. DOS, so comfort on this one too.
They're going to do this on purpose now. They're going to sit here while nothing else is happening because they're just like, no,
Who cares about people dying in the mid lane? Nasus. Yeah. Gonna go back to the replay of presumably what happened in this mid lane. You can see that. Okay, all right, Exakick kind of baiting this one in, playing the, gets the award for the Oscar in this one, gets the Graviton. The Binding Eclipse, that's the cue for that gun, comes through, Ignite comes through, and regardless of whether you have crazy amount of damage in the world, the CC very much hurting the LeBlanc and allows you to get in a couple more autos. Backlund feeling themselves a little too much and goes down.
This is a bit of an issue now for Dusty. They're slowly they were bringing the game back, but now they're 5-1 kills down. They do have a Dragon, and there is a Rift Herald available to them. This will be their second of the game. So right now, with the way things are positioned, they're the ones who started off, and they're the ones that have control. So right now, you don't have any quickness at the moment. This is the engage we were talking about. Yes, Ragner and, of course, DOS were able to make all that stuff happen, but they had to expend ultimates in order to make it. So Dusty come back off of rotations and say that they want to try and take this fight.
Yeah, but I want you to keep an eye particularly on this. It's coming down, very short cooldown. Kerberos getting caught on the top side.
There we go, it's going to be secure. The charm comes down, but it's onto Kerberos. There's a good ultimate there from the Nautilus to try and keep everyone away. Ragnar trying to see if he can maybe kind of get an angle with this decimating smash, and that's exactly what he gets. Yike has to flash away after taking the Nautilus ball. And now has to try and make this one work onto him. Ragnar looking to try and make this one work. Backlund gets a kill, but they've lost the Sivir. They're losing so much more off of this fight. Backlund seeing if he can run away, but he cannot because he's been shot through the heart. And Dusty's to blame. The only one to survive is going to be that Zhao after he picked up the Rift Herald.
Oh, Dusty, they take another poor fight around the Herald. We saw it in game one. Of course, the one they took in this game, there wasn't a fight associated with it. LDLC, this Sion is already a huge problem for them. Look with how much impunity Ragnar can walks up and says, hey, I'm tanky now. Don't worry, I'm level 11. I've got loads of HP. I've got myself some items. And look how long they survive in the front line. The same can't be said of Stend. First kill goes down. Resets start running through from Viego and from Ahri as well. And at this point, LDLC, they do have the dominance in those team fights. Dusty, they choose a poor fight around the Herald, and it's going to dig them further into a deficit.
And we've seen this happen before, but last time around, like you said, it was an awful lot less of a goal to Stend. Buddy, pal, my sweet, my rotten soldier, my sweet cheese, there's just no need for you to be here.
That's my boy.
Yeah. Oh no, my boy! Father, help.
Well, they're going to turn around the fight just slightly. Stend has hooked back up, and Ragnar
Kerberos is on the backside. Kerberos is here, but I don't know if Kerberos wants to be here. You can see they just can't put the damage on the Ragnar. He's just sitting there, taking it all. They'll get the Crescent Guard out. The stun comes in. They get the stopwatch out of the Zhao as well. And this should have just been leave your Nautilus to die. You didn't have to go this hard. And look, Stend gets to watch as the rest of his team dies for his mistakes. The sins of the support shall be paid for by the team.
Oh, and Backlund trying to look for something. I don't know how the heck he's ended up here. Probably not making out of this one. Sees Yike on the minions.
Oh, he's looking for DOS, but a charm means he can't get anywhere, so not going to land the charm, not going to land the chain. And Backlund not going to be able to try and get himself back out of this one. I will say he's still LeBlanc, but he's going to have a hell of a long road. He needs to get those cooldowns going, and Yike is hunting. Yike has blood in his nostrils, and you can see now Backlund thinking about it. Ragnar is there. Can he get over the wall?
No!
Can he get away? Splash and smash! That's what you want to be seeing, and it's a 6,500 gold lead.
And the man of the hour of game 2 takes down the kill at the end of it. This Sion is so powerful.
Why are you starting this?
I think at this point you're just trying to look for anything you can take on the map, right? Because you see that your Nasus has TP, can respond to the fight. I think Dusty realized they're in freefall. After you lose that Herald fight, if it was hard to take fights beforehand, it's going to get even worse by the minute after that point. And it is an overextension. I can understand the mentality of thinking that we need to get something, but LDLC, they are just so quick to punish, so quick to pull the trigger. And if it was Dusty being decisive in game 1 about the fights that they were taking, it is really LDLC in this game. They managed to just find that first target, use their stronger front line, and just make sure that they can really run away with the fights after the first kill goes down.
Yeah, and again, you can see Backlund trying to go back over towards the Dragon Pit, maybe look for something there, but they're never really isolated. As LeBlanc, you would love to have people by themselves looking for that 1v1, but because it ends up being a 2 versus 1, a 3 versus 2, it's not really the situation you want to be in. And look, at this point, he's caught between a rock and a hard place, or specifically a Viego and a Raptor Pit, so he needs to try and find something.
That's how the phrase goes.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't pretend to know much about Valorian customs, but that's just how it is. But yeah, it's just not much else you can do. I will say LDLC did use a hell of a lot of summoners to try and get that one to work. So they are 7,000 gold ahead, well, 6,000 gold ahead, but they are, you know, going to have to maybe cool the Jets just a little bit. As I say that, let's go Jets full on right now as Kerberos going 1-for-1. You can see that these guys finally having their own little duel right now, but Ragner with that Sunfire Aegis, with the decimating smashes, with the shouts, just constantly pushing them back. And like I said earlier, it's a wet noodle fight. No one's going to die unless there's a second player.
Oh, man. But Ragner, again, just flexing the muscles, just making sure that Dusty cannot play around this Nasus. Nasus isn't getting free access to farm. And on the other side of the map, you have what I think is a really good build into the LeBlanc as well. I mean, you've actually got yourself a Luden's Echo onto the Ahri. You've got yourself 10 stacks on the Dark Seal. So with the huge amount of magic penetration you get early into the game, particularly when you get to that second item, because of course Luden's mythic passive is that magic penetration, someone like LeBlanc doesn't get to dodge away from you just autoing W and ulting towards them, getting electrocute proc, and then half the HP's gone. At that point, it's very difficult for Backlund to play in the side lane, and Backlund on this LeBlanc is one of the big win conditions for Dusty if they were to mount a comeback. You need LeBlanc to do something magical, blow a Rakan flash, blow the ultimate out of nowhere, and thank you, observers, for signaling that we're right in the center of the screen.
I've angered them.
Yeah,
I've upset the observers.
It's like the stare into the abyss and the abyss stares back. And when that happens, you should at least like offer it refreshments or something. It's not really good to be on bad terms with the abyss.
Yeah, it's like when you say something blasphemous and then all of a sudden a thundercloud comes in. You know, nothing bad has happened just yet, but you know something's about to happen, and you're just like, oh, I've made a terrible mistake, terrible judgment in my error. But
Dusty as they lock in Nasus.
Our error in my judgment. Yeah, oh, I mean, honestly, this Nasus does not seem to be it right now. He is just stacking onto a side lane. We can never escape him. I am curious to know what actually are his stacks at the moment. Observers, if we can have a quick look at him. So he's on 270 stacks. Not ideal at 21 minutes.
I'm not going to lie, I'm not a huge Nasus aficionado, but even
should
with
be
that,
at about 500. Should be. I'm not a massive one, but I know that the rough number is about 500 to 20 minutes if you're good at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, 270, he's not had a good time. He's 0-5.
Yes, but now that's actually the second most important thing to talk about in this game, because I'd like to point your eyes down there.
I don't know, it's an empty book.
It's an empty book, it is, but okay, so we kind of said this in the first game, right? Because this is a second item. Of course, Luden's, when you build a legendary item, gives you extra magic pen, so it does give you some relevant stats, but you're looking for one good fight to snowball. Dusty, you're really all-inning on the comeback, but it doesn't help when you're caught out like this.
I mean, it doesn't help when you all-in on the wrong side of the map. Kerberos is just getting taken out right now by the combination of the support and jungle. It does take a hell of a lot of time. Ragner takes away some of his HP just for the sheer fun of it right now, but yeah, this is starting to feel pretty bad here for Dusty, and I'm going to go ahead and say, as your unofficial draft coach, don't go for Nasus again. I don't want to see this on the map ever again.
And again, like we saw, it was kind of off theme from the rest of Dusty's draft, but the way that it's been shut down without Dusty being able to really contest with it has left them in a very difficult scenario. You can't just turtle, you can't just hope that late game works out for you. Look at that damage!
Yeah, he's dead. DenVoksne will die to the Ignite, and that's going to be just
Luden's
more and more
gaming.
pressure. Luden's gaming. It's all about the burst, baby. It's all about that electrocute, but you're losing mid, you're losing bot, you're 9,000 gold down, you're just not having a good time, your top laner's feeding, it's just solo queue all over again.
And again, I like that Dusty have... Look, at the end of the day, if you're this far behind, you can't turtle up because you're not going to scale. You need to look for something. They haven't been particularly executing as well on it because they can't just group up in 5v5. They've had to look somewhere a little further beyond, but even with that slim pickings across the map, you can see that LDLC hitting even more break points, second items across the board and heading up towards their third. And while they haven't gone towards the Baron yet, even though it has only been up a couple of minutes, while they haven't really been dragging Dusty across the map, they are just passively draining Dusty of their advantages, going through their jungle, getting vision onto their side of the map as well. And there's very little for Dusty, the NLC first seed, to play around.
Look at the item differences right now between the Sion and the Nasus. You have 3 items, and building towards your 4th here for Ragnar alongside his boots. You barely have your 2nd item here, or half a 2nd item here as Kerberos, and he's just going to struggle to really make this one where Yike can go back into towards his bot side.
He probably loses versus the Viego too.
He loses it anyway in 1v1. I think even at that stage, just nothing you can do. Kerberos, my dude, you're just not able to do it. You want to try and stack, but you're just not able to do it. And look, I feel bad for the rest of Dusty because they're going to have to live with this and kind of just accept, look, this is a part of the map we can't deal with.
And particularly, and just to emphasize that even more, right, you look at where the wards are as well. Actually, you know what, we can show it on here and you can see where Dusty have their wards, but observers, if we could toggle over to Dusty's vision, they don't have anything on bot side. Yeah, a lot of it just got cleared out, but Nasus was on the wrong side. They're trying to play with incomplete information. They pop the Sivir roll. Not in range, they don't land anything. LDLC just choking the life out of Dusty in this game.
They're going to look for Yike right now, and they're going to try and take him out. He flashes away, though, and keeps himself alive. Doesn't quite get out just at the end. But they are going to trade it back for 2, 3, maybe even their base. There's not a lot else there to be taken right now, and LDLC, they're kind of done with this game right now. This is why we expected them to come out and smash, because this is the LDLC we know.
This is what we expected from game 1. They bring it out in the 2nd game. Snowball performance through top side, later handed off to their carries on the bot side. 0 deaths between the mid lane and the AD carry for LDLC.
They're not quite done just yet. They're going to take away the Nexus turret number 1, but they recognize, look, if we get some stacks going over to the LeBlanc in a couple of seconds, if the Zhao gets himself up into a 3rd item, we could be in some deep trouble. They are going to reset, not take the dragon just yet, but yeah, it's a very large hole that you find yourselves in, Dusty, and you're trying to dig up, and that's not really how you get out of a hole.
No. And I get that they were looking for those risky plays, already kind of went through that one, but every time you lose those plays, it just gets worse. LDLC not really letting up on that pressure. They're not giving Dusty easy entrances into this game, and they just have an abundance of damage at this point. It is just, you find one carry in the right position for LDLC, and Dusty can't fight at that point. They have to work so hard to find the right angles, and LDLC, as much as we were getting happy after that game, we're like, yes! We're not... Okay, I was. And potentially the other LC fans at home as well, but this is a much more sad existence.
Yeah, this is not having a fun time right now. Eika getting full value, I was just about to say, of that Medjai that he's built. Backlund now on the... he actually bought that book from charity in the last game, so sadly, no pages in it.
Someone had made it into a hat. It was super weird.
Yeah, it's got scammed, man, right there and then. But yeah, this game is all but done. It's LDLC having a bit of fun with it. Dos will use the quickness to try and make sure he doesn't die. Stend will fall. DenVoksne trying his very best to make sure he doesn't fall away just yet. There's going to be the crescent guard to keep him safe, and you can see again, just nothing you can do. Kerberos now 0 and 8. This Nasus just has not been what it needed to be. And this is, again, look, I might be sounding like a broken record right now, but when you put so much emphasis on a final pick, you get counter, you get full information, and then you bring out this, it's just not good enough.
And so to kind of, let's be honest, Baron's going down, LDLC in a crushing advantage. They are teleporting in, but Dusty, this was their loss condition. It was, I mean, yeah, you've just analysis. I can understand looking for it, looking for a little bit more damage. Go down all the same, but if you have a Nasus in that point, you have to realize one kill goes onto that guy, and suddenly your game is very, very difficult. It's a genuine loss condition, not just a win condition, but reversed. It's just, if this happens, you lose the game. That's exactly what's happened to LDLC. Playing heads up around that point, particularly Yike and Ragner, the architects of Dusty's demise around that point.
And now, Dusty, you gotta be feeling like unless a miracle happens for you in this game, you're going into game number 3, which, in fairness, is only at 1-1. Definitely plenty to come around to. You can learn from your loss, and you can maybe get to choose your own blue side, so you get to go on that side of the map, maybe look towards getting yourself some different advantages in the draft. But this is the LDLC we were so terrified of. This is the most kind of scary team coming out from the scariest region, and they're going to be Tokyo drifting over to the side of DenVoksne, who does not have a hope in hell. Yike gets himself his 8th kill of the game. It's 24-3. Ragner is so damn large, he can sit underneath this turret for a millennia, and it would not make a difference. He can just sit there, wait for the rest of his team to come in, and LDLC, they're coming back with a game win.
Yeah, this is unceremonious in defeat for Dusty. Taken down super early into the game, put into the dirt, Ldlc standing atop him.
Yeah, you can see now, you got to try and make something work here with the Crescent Guard. Try and get Backlund on the backside of this one here. Kerberos, it's been fun, my dude. We're going to try and get you onto your 9th death, because Ike's ain't going to let you go away just yet. He's got some decent stacks down, but nothing else left to it. Eika goes godlike. LDLC bring back the series. And we're at 1-1 apiece.
What a game 2 from LDLC.
Oh,
Like,
night
after
and
that
day.
first game where it was actually arguably on Dusty outperforming you, out-executing you, to come back like that and just slap back and say there is no contest here, that is a heck of a win put on the books. And now Dusty will have to showcase some of their own mentality that they showed in their own reverse sweep victory of the NLC Finals. If they were rocked by that game, and they would have every right to be, this is going to be a difficult series from this point out.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can take this, you threw the Nasus in there, it didn't work, forget about it, move on. Clean slate, don't need to worry about it anymore. Move forward with trying to make this one work. And look, it might mean that you need to pick up an early top laner, you might need to pick up an early setup for yourself, but we'll have to wait and see. Coming up now is a small break, so stay tuned and we'll be right back.